And cake.
And cake. What is the cake? What is it in the shape of? Was it a ladybird or something?
No,
it's got sweets with it as well.
It was just cake.
Oh, wow.
It's got cherries, I think.
Oh, cherries. I'll feed them to the guinea pig or something. Do you want the box back once they're eating it?
No, the box is fine.
The world I mean, it's, the RFL have done a thing to me, haven't they? Welcome to the podcast. I don't think we started yet on the radio, so I can say. The RFL sent out a thing today. More than a sport. RFL, an RL commercial, for the time being, launch environmental sustainability strategy. Just think of the amount of energy which would be harnessed from the cogs spinning in the brains of various rugby league club owners and chairmen this week. These men. People say, well, why do you say men? Because it's men.
It's men.
It's men.
Men of a certain age.
I was minded to think of what can I compare the people who run rugby league in this country to.
A summer's day.
Bradley Hardacre, the character played by Timothy West in the ITV sitcom Brass.
One of the best sitcoms of its era. I've not seen it. Can't recommend it enough.
I forgot how great the title sequence is as well, playing off Dallas. But yes, welcome to the podcast, Forty20 Live. If you're listening on rugbyleague.com, well, no, somebody be on after us. I hope it's Chapel Roan, but I bet it's not. She's not rock, so she wouldn't count. Me, Phil, we're here again for another hour and a bit.
And now we can reveal why there were only two of us last week.
And James Charles has got a new job. Does he get paid for it? Is he a proper rugby league person? Are we aware if he's what's the phrase?
Well, I'm hoping he doesn't get paid for it, because that was what was wrong with apparently all the other people who were in charge of the game.
When they say rugby league thoroughbreds or thoroughbred rugby league people, are they geldings? Not James. I'm not casting aspersions on James there, by the way, just all the other people. I've got questions already. Sounds like we're underwater.
Really?
Is that any better? Listen, let me we've got to play with the wire. It's always good when this, if I unplug it and plug it in again, it'll probably work.
Underwater.
Can't do a sound test. Do we sound better now, listener? No, we have to wait about 3 hours for people to tell us if it's...
Is it Stingray?
You've got a bad... We should have a... Oh, hang on. Oh, that'll be why, hang on. Is that better now? We had a bad echo because we got it on two things for some reason. Tell me now, is that better? People. Already better. Thank you, LG. Should we start with the rugby or the news?
Are the two intertwined?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Well, I'll go through the questions we've got first here.
What I would say...
Yes.
...is, yet again, I think this weekend has thrown up some fabulous rugby for this early in the season. 2 games in particular, both on Sky, during the international football weekend, Warrington and Saints, Leeds and Wigan. Great examples of the best of our sport, no matter who you support.
Yes.
And... nobody's talking about it.
Oh, so that means we have to start by...
They're all talking about what's happening in Rugby League.
What is happening in Rugby League? No one. The people who are running Rugby League don't know. I mean, hopefully we'll have a guest next week who probably won't know either. But
well, there's a meeting tomorrow, I think, of some of the people who have been invited to form, we believe, the new board at the Rugby League.
King Nigel the First.
Not least to decide who is going to be the chair of this board, because I think it was felt that when it was set up this way, it was Nigel's role, and I think Sport England may have said, hang on one moment, there is a governance issue here about someone who has shares in a club being the chair of a supposedly independent board. So I'm not sure we could sanction that.
Are we saying there's a chance James Charles might be the chairman of the Rugby Football League, chairperson of the Rugby Football League?
How good would that be?
That'd be hilarious, wouldn't it?
I suspect it'll come from one of the 3 executive directors, which would mean it would probably have to be Rob Graham, because I don't think Tony Sutton as a paid employee could be the chair. I don't think he could be the CEO and the chair. Rob Graham, I think, is the other one of the 3 executive directors. Dick James is one of 5 non-executive directors. So I suspect if it can't be Nigel Wood, it could be Rob Graham. Although my choice would be, there is a lady from Manchester City football, women's football, who's been in a national governing body of football. I would have her as the chair, because I think having a woman chair now
but hang on,
would really upset some people.
She might know how to run a sports governing body, but what does she know about rugby league?
Well, I
it's got
just
to be
think,
rugby league.
again, to add to the machinations of everything that's going on, I would love to see a female
How many rugby
chairperson.
league games has she been to? Does she contribute your rugby? How many teams has she got? We've got 2. You know, how many games has she been to? That's important. How many big games has she got a free dinner at?
So
because let's face it, all these proper
questions.
rugby league people, right? And we can say this as people of the press who don't pay either. These chairmen, well, they get freebies at these rugby. They don't pay to go to the test matches, do they? They're in the posh seats with the prawn sandwiches. They're all right talking crap about how many games have you seen. How many games do they pay to see? I know they pay lots of money for their rugby clubs. That they're very upset that they're paying all this money for their rugby clubs, but they don't have to pay that money. They don't have to spend all that money on players.
I just think I don't think what we're doing should be in any way undermined, but I do think it would be quite funny if we had a female chair of the RFL.
Well, we'll get on to that later. Well, here's some stuff. Hi guys, a few questions actually.
Go on then.
Why is the NRL ruck better than Super Leagues? Why can't the RFL Super League sort it? Well, Super League aren't happy because they pay money to the RFL and they provide them with substandard match officials who can't police the ruck. But when we get the super ultimate rugby referees, they're going to sort it out. I don't know. It's strange, isn't it? Why is it different? They have different rules as well.
I just think the games are slightly different, and the athletes that play the games, through all of the reasons that we've talked about before as to why it's the premier sport in the Southern Hemisphere, because they get the first pick of all the best athletes, and their 30 odd players in each squad are under pressure from another 30 who haven't yet made the squad, make it a slightly different game. That we have teams that want to try and slow the ruck down because they know that their personnel is not as good as the team they're playing. I think in the NRL there is a more even standard, as witnessed by West Tigers, who've started the season on fire.
She's also talking about Paul Wellens, but we'll come on to him in a bit. When Nigel's left Bradford, has he taken their big screen for his office at the Etihad? I'm
sure they're having another one, a proper one installed.
Yeah. Well, they've still got the world's biggest goalpost, which is what these were supposed to be a Mickey takeoff. RJ World Sports News says, what do you guys think about what Brian Carney was talking about? Something bigger than Super League in 1996 is coming and will shock the game. He claims to know something. Well, he probably does know something because he's on the telly.
I'd be very surprised if he didn't know something. I mean, firstly, he works for, in fact he's the preeminent presenter of our main broadcaster, so you would think he would know things, but he's so well connected in Australia with Matthew Johns in particular, that I think he knows more than he's able to let on. But I also think that it's a very good headline, and he is primed to put he and his opinions and the company he works for into the other media. It's a very clever strategy. We're all talking about it. I would imagine that there is going to be some dispute about what Super League looks like once we get this latest strategic review, because some people will want X, others want Y, there's definitely some people that want Z, and there's potential investment into either X or Y or Z or even A or B. So I think there is going to be quarrelsome times over the next 3 months.
As you say, if he's saying it on TV, when he works for the people who put all the money in, well, not all, most of the money.
We don't know anything.
No.
But some people want a 14-team Super League. Some people...
Would one of those be the potential future chairman who currently owns shares in one of the clubs? I mean, that's just speculation. How can you come up with that?
Some people don't want French teams in Super League.
Yeah.
Where does that leave the competition?
So we should have to find another one, because we're having Bradford and London in, so we have to find another one. Maybe Batley this week if he's upset people.
Some people want to invest in Super League, but they don't want to invest in all of Super League. There can we spread rumour and speculation?
Well, it depends what the rumour and speculation is, as long as it's not libelous.
Well,
you know what I'm going to say later, so...
In our latest magazine, there's speculation that there might be American investment in the sport. So the NRL, yes, are the prime movers in wanting to have a bigger and better and more higher profile competition over here because it would aid them in what they want to do. But there is thought that Las Vegas was funded by Americans who may want to invest in the sport. There's also talk going round that Middle East, Far East Consortium may want to invest in Super League.
So like Japan, China, North Korea. Pyongyang are back.
And if there are people out there that want to invest, you can see why there is a scramble to decide who determines how that money is spent. But also the people that invest will want to say in what it looks like, and it may be different to what it looks like at the moment, which might be what Mr. Carney is part alluding to.
Are the New London going to sign Daly Cherry Evans? No, he's leaving Manly. John must be really upset. He must be gutted. Get to losing, says Andy. Well, they're French, so they can't come in. So it's London, Bradford and somebody else.
Well, there is opposition to the French teams being in the competition. Now,
well, they don't have a vote. They just, they're guests of ours.
Whether that will hold sway is going to depend very much on some of these non-executive board members, because the other topic of conversation is...
Does that mean the people in France are going to have to be nice to James Charles? Because they're not usually nice to him.
Well, he likes going there. But I think there are people who are non-executive directors who will be saying, but what about the rest of the game? There's a lot of focus on Super League and what that may look like and who might be involved in it. But if we are working on behalf of the game as a whole and we are representative of different areas of the game, what is going to happen?
Did you see Swinton's statement this week?
That they're playing the women and the men as a double header?
They did do that, which puts them above some clubs. But they had been criticised apparently for spending money on women, which is, I'm sure any young men of a certain persuasion watching this programme, though, you do waste a lot of money on women over the years. However, they put a statement out saying, can't take anything seriously, can we? They put a statement out saying the women are self-sufficient. They bring in money from sponsors and that pays for their travelling. So why aren't men's teams self-sufficient? But that's another point for another day. We weren't going to start with the politics, but we've got on to it now. Shane Richardson, he likes a chat, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Well, he likes trying to stuff. Yeah.
And he knows the British game quite well, having been an investor in it at one point.
And he says we're not going to deal with them. Who do they want to deal with? Who's their puppet?
This is where the machinations get very interesting, and people are positioning themselves before we even know what the horizon begins to look like.
It's like speculating on signings for next season when we haven't even got through this one yet. I don't care, says Paul. That's just it. No, he says, I don't care what sex the chair of the RFL is. Don't. As long as they are the best person for the job and won't just be a mouthpiece for certain club owners.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we all hope, Paul, but you know what's going to happen. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We will see what happens in the coming days.
I think we'll know by the end of this week, who the chair of the panel is. I think the first meeting is bizarrely on April Fool's Day.
Yes, I saw that. That's quite funny.
Write your own joke there.
I hope it's in League because I could pop it.
We just need to get away from talking about politics and revolution and see some firm proposals, have them debated by a board that looks to be equitable, even though I do find that some of the comments that have been made in the press today about the makeup of the board and the fact that there's been stalling and people being put in there that are there to question this new regime, that's exactly, checks and balances are exactly what we want.
Do they want us to be? Is the RFL supposed to be North Korea? Is it supposed to be Donald Trump's Republican Party? More on that later. Because we'll talk about the rugby before we get... Was there any other news this week apart from that? Because players might have moved clubs or whatever, but everything's fairly boring.
Huddersfield put out a statement apologising for their start to the season.
I mean, they may as well,
through their director of rugby, Andy Kelly, who we admire. He used to be a.
He's a proper rugby league person.
Absolutely,
he's someone I'd trust to run the game.
And I get what he's saying and why he's saying it. I'm just not a big fan of clubs apologising.
It's just results happen, don't they?
Well,
they're not always
there's
good.
always a team that starts off the pre-season with a huge raft of injuries and begin the season, and I don't know what it is. They seem to be contagious. That once you get one, you get a raft of them. Last year it was Lee. Hull had a fair share as well last year. This year, unfortunately, it's Huddersfield. But I just think you work through it as best you can, and I don't know. I'm again. Castleford apologised, didn't they, after losing to Bradford in the Challenge Cup. Where do you go after being beaten at home by Catalan and not producing again your best? It becomes meaningless if you have to keep going back to it.
It wasn't a great game, was it, on Thursday? Salford and Huddersfield. By the way, Salford, what's happening with them? And I understand, because I have muted the person on Twitter, that a certain club owner has come out and said, I don't want them getting any more money that they're due from the RFL later, because they might not be getting paid this week or whatever.
Well, George Hill, the young Castleford forward, has joined them on loan, so I assume the fact that they are still allowed to recruit players means that hopefully there will be some kind of there won't be a resolution, but seeing them through to the end of the season. But their performance was an indicator of the fact that there is determination, spirit and togetherness within that group of players. But as a game, I think we call it officially a bludger. Wasn't great.
It's got to keep Salford alive till the end of the year, and then whatever happens after the end of the season.
Well, the game may not look quite the same at the end of the year, but again, it's not news. We are told that if we had to lose a team to administration and they pulled out of the league now, and we only had 5 games a week rather than 6, that the cost to the sport for money to be repayable to Sky under the agreement of the current contract would be more than the wages will cost to keep Salford going to the end of the season. Therefore, it makes sense to keep Salford going to the end of the season.
Remind me, I've got to talk about the finances involved in the podcast later. So Salford
Are there finances?
Well, some of my finances, but we'll come on to that. I think it's all tax deductible, hopefully. 23-10 to Salford, 16-0 at half time. I got home and watched this game, and it was... I mean, the key number here is the attendance, 3,764. God bless the Huddersfield fans who made it. This is we never criticise the Huddersfield fans who turn up week in, week out. The problem is there aren't enough of them. And the same goes for Salford. Mm-hmm. And if there's only 3,764, and let's be kind and say 64 were from Huddersfield, where are the people? Mm-hmm. This is a team who've been in 2 finals recently.
But the problem is, whilst ever what they're doing is being undermined by the new consortium not completing the financial deal and the uncertainty that surrounds the club, you would understand if fans were withholding their support.
Phil will be happy though, because he's a Salford fan, so I'm sure he was very happy with the result. And
it's an important result.
They won without Mark Sneyd, and
yeah, it's an important result, and the problem for Salford was the longer it went on that they didn't get a win, the longer the odds of writing off the entire season for a club that made the playoffs last year, it looked like a possibility, and that would have been a shame. Getting a win, some belief and confidence that by sticking together there's a reward on the field for that, even if they're not sure about the rewards they're going to be getting off the field. That's a vindication of what a strong group they are, and personally I'm pleased for them. I'm glad they're off the mark.
Phil says our crowds were crap when we were doing well, so I mean in fairness he's right there. So
but again, you would hope that if all of the plans that Phil has been promised by his club did come to fruition, there were 10,000 people there for the game against Lee in the playoffs. And yeah, full credit to Lee, they took a load of fans, but it showed you that there was the possibility of getting people who don't normally go to Salford involved in the club. But you've got to have something that you passionately believe in is going to be credible before you're going to commit to paying you 25 quid to go and watch it.
Half the games in Super League this week were over at half time, and this was obviously one of them with a 16-0 lead, and you can say that Huddersfield got their points very much in the closing stages when Salford had obviously pretty much.
And I think Luke Robinson was very honest and said, you know, they'd been in most of the games that they'd played this year, but that one they never were. And again, it's a shame because Niall Evans comes in, a Huddersfield guy. It's a good signing. Has to go off at half time with a suspected broken foot. You know, somebody has run over a black cat.
Point has been made on the programme before, so it's not a new one, but a lot of their salary cap is tied up in a prop forward.
Yep, who isn't playing at the moment.
30 odd or whatever, and isn't going to change games. Prop forwards don't change games. That's not what they're there for. I'm not saying they could have got somebody else. I don't know who else they would have got with the money they've spent on Tom Burgess, but it's looking more and more like, yeah, it's great for Sky can do a thing. Oh, look, he's playing against his brother and whatever, and he's the coach of Warrington. But I'm not saying he's a waste of money, but it's resource that could have been better spent elsewhere.
I think that there's real misfortune there, though. You know, Adam Clune, who they would have hoped would have been their starting scrum half, had the benefit of playing here last year, got to know the competition. He's now out. Zach Wolford, who they signed as their hooker, that's two very important spine positions. He's now out. I think then you start looking at, was the spend right? Well, if everybody had been fit, probably it might have been. But now it looks like verging on an extravagance.
And it's not Luke Robinson's fault because he wasn't in charge.
No,
so
and I think that they have to stick by him. I think the bigger issue these are two clubs that played each other that have much bigger issues than whatever the result might have been. You know, the other news story during the week
Giants,
was that Ken Davey has completed his acquisition of the facilities at the Shea. He is going to move Huddersfield there while they have another stadium built in
where they haven't got a site, and
you wonder whether that will ever happen, and what does that look like in the licensing era?
Never waste your
assuming that we have a license, because that's another.
Well, it's just going to be the 14 names that the chairman of the Rugby Football League decides. Andy says, never waste your marquee money on a forward. Was the guy at Trent Merrin, was he marking? Or did you just get paid a lot of money and then that was a long time ago.
You don't have to declare it. Actually, he had a very good season, but in an ailing team.
So don't waste your money on forwards. I mean, I feel bad saying that, but I
think if Leeds paid marquee money in 2004 for Ali Lawatita, it probably was worth it.
But he could change again.
Yes,
and
indeed did.
I don't mean to sound like I'm saying Tom Burgess isn't a good player. He's obviously a very good player, but it's not the position necessarily you need to spend all your money on. So that was one game that was over at half time. Two on Friday were not over at half time. We'll start with Wakefield Hull, because I'm assuming you didn't watch this.
I watched the last 5 minutes of each half because it overran.
That was good, that wasn't it?
Yes.
Oh, isn't this week the Warrington Leeds game the 5,000th game, because they're going to kick it off at a different time to the Leeds?
Well, Lee are kicking off 5 minutes later, so that Warrington.
Yeah, now you say that, but what's the odds on that kicking off 5 minutes before? I'm not saying for any particular reason.
So it usurps the title of 5,000.
Yeah.
No, they won't. So yes, Warrington Leeds is the 5,000th game of the summer era.
Is this Huddersfax now? Sounds better than Shuddersfield. No, it's always going to be Shuddersfield. Always going to be Shuddersfield. So Wakefield 12, Hull 16. Everyone's, a lot of Wakefield fans slagging off the ref because it's the default position to go for. But Wakefield had plenty of possession in the first half, plenty of possession in the second half, didn't do enough work. And that's too many
three tries disallowed.
So there you go. You see, video referee's fault. Too many errors. And Hull, as we know, they're quite good now. So
I think the great thing about Hull again is that they've come from behind. I think that says a lot about a team, that they consistently go behind, but the belief that they have amongst them that is growing by the week means that they are very much more difficult to beat than they have been for the last 3 or 4 years. And I think again, when you see the pictures in the dressing room of people like Gareth Ellis joining in with the celebrations, this is what they've been hoping to achieve. They are clearly under the influence of the right coach for this group of players. They've got a general out there who is, I think we said it last week, I think the consistently best player in Super League over the first 5 rounds. They are managing the injuries that they have with having a depth in their squad. They're out there still actively looking to recruit, so they brought in Liam Knight, who's added a physical presence to the pack. I think there may even be one more signing in the not too distant future that will bolster their ranks.
Is that someone from the NRL who might be English? Possibly.
Could be.
Whose dad used to play for the club.
But I just think they're clearly moving in the right direction. The landmark that they passed this weekend was after 5 rounds. They've now got more points than they had in that entire last year, which is an astonishing turnaround.
And I'm going to come.
And Wakefield can't win at home.
No, I'm going to. Well, and I wasn't there, so that it's now not my fault. So that's the good news. But I'm not going to be there for the next 2 games anyway either. But to contradict what I've just said about Tom Burgess, Essa, he's quite good. So I don't know how much Philip.
But he's in his second year in the competition, so he has settled into exactly what's required. I think his job has been slightly simplified. Last year, because he was their only real strike player, it was like, could you go out and do absolutely everything? Now it's you're going to play the first 30 minutes. You're going to come on again. So 10-15 minutes into the second half, we want you to be the most damaging forward out there. If you can get an offload away, great. If not, just run like Tavita Pangai Jr. or Payne Haas and make your presence felt, and he's doing it brilliant.
Straight and direct, like every prop forward.
And a lot of their players have got points to prove. They've picked up players who either have not fully fulfilled their potential at other clubs, or who are coming to the end of a distinguished career, and they're giving them an opportunity and a stage upon which to make a statement before their career finishes, or to prove people wrong. And that's quite powerful if you can keep them all fit together and on the field.
It's a well done Hull, and Wakefield will be back at some point. Maybe this Friday.
Wakefield are just finding out that Super League is a really tough division.
And 2 wins away at Leeds and Wigan, games they wouldn't have been expected to win. Although Darryl Powell, who I don't want to say likes to moan, but sometimes he does. But he's right. How can Sky, who've got lots of money, because we just said this earlier, and they produce all the rugby, why can't they get a bloody clock that works? Because it's dreadful. Oh.
I think, again, we've gone to televising every game perhaps sooner than we've got the money to invest in the necessary technology to see every game. I don't think it's a news story that the technology of games that are on Super League Plus or Sky Plus is not as high as the technology in the 2 main games. And I think you're going to find that throughout the entire season, and I think we probably knew that was the story last year. I'm not sure that's why Wakefield lost, because the technology's poor.
Like the microphone not being on twice on me thing. That was my error. That was user error. That was I don't know who builds a Sky scoreboard though, but never mind. So I don't think there's anything much else to say about Wakefield versus Hull, because it was Wakefield,
again another game that was in doubt until the very last play of the game. In fact, the disallowed try for the forward pass, the Josh Rourke forward pass, a metre back, Wakefield win the game. That's how close it was.
Comes into the side, first time in the team I think this season, certainly in Super League, played really well. Got the man of the match from the supporters, so
Jake Truman didn't play. Max
so again
play.
It's Max Thornton, who's been really impressive. He's out for a while now.
All of that is what Wakefield. When with the greatest respect, when they were so dominant in the Championship last year, if they knew they were playing what they might have deemed to have been one of the lesser lights, they could have rested and rotated their players. Now you've got to put your best team out every week, and you're going to get injuries because of the intensity that you're playing at every week. You have to come to terms with that.
You won't believe this, but the referees in the Championship were better than the ones in the Super League.
Really?
Yeah. Was nothing to do with Wakefield winning all the games.
Was the technology better in the Championship, even though the games weren't filmed?
St Helens 12, Warrington 14. So obviously I didn't watch all of this because I was watching the other game. I did watch the start of it with Brian and Paul Sculthorpe and John Wilkin having their say on stuff, which was interesting, and we'll come on to that later. But 8-2 at half time to Warrington. They win 14-12 in the end. We had the comment from Liz earlier about Paul Wellens. I think it might have been Liz last week who said similar. Wellens said he was pleased with the performance despite the loss to Versus Wire. His time must be up soon. I will find a long thing to read in a minute, as you tell me more about this game, which I'm assuming you watch more of.
I did, and I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a great game. Defensively, both teams were on. The difference turned out to be Warrington scored a try off a St Helens error, which again, it was a looping pass from Jack Wellesby that was picked off after it bounced by Matty Ashton. That basically was the difference, and I'm not sure that's a structural error or a coaching error. I thought the defensive performances of both were brilliant. Clearly Mark Sneed gave Warrington a different dimension because again, even though he'd only had 1.5 training sessions, the things that he does brilliantly are the things that Warrington needed, so he kicked them out of trouble.
Well, that's exactly what Chris says here. Is Sneed the early season signing for Warrington that Eric Cantona was for Man United years ago? He made a massive difference on Friday, even just getting us out of trouble with field position.
And that's the thing, that he will get better as he comes to know the players with him and around him better, and the style that they play and some of the moves that they operate. But how many times do you hear the phrase rugby league is a simple game? Well, the easiest way of playing rugby league is getting your opponents to come off their own line and having one or possibly two kickers in your side that the opposition can't mark both of them. And by having Mark Sneed, immediately they've got an option that they didn't have. Williams becomes a better player on the back of it because he's freer to do the things that he can do well. The kick through from Sneed for Williams for the first try, again, it wasn't a training ground move because they hadn't been on the training ground long enough to practice it, but Sneed could see there was space behind. Williams had read what Sneed was able to do. Sneed's ability, put it on a plate for Williams. That's something that Warrington didn't have 7 days before. So yes, that makes a difference. Yes, it could be an absolutely inspired signing. But I think what would have been of even greater value to Sam Burgess was the fact that for the last couple of weeks Warrington's defence had looked flaky and it was back on song. So yeah, I thought it was a great game. Nothing between the teams, nothing that I would point a finger at a coach to say suddenly you're a bad coach because you came out on the wrong side of a game that could have gone either way.
Saints are rubbish, having won 3 of their 5 games, the same as Wigan, Leeds and Warrington.
I think the issue for some Saints fans, if you read a lot of the social media, is they have a concern about Johnny Lomax playing at 7 and whether that's not his best position and whether he's not influential enough in that position and whether he's more easily closed down closer to the ruck than he is when he's one off it. I think they've got George Whitby coming through and he is going to get more game time.
Before I read this long thing that I've been sent, Andy says, Phil, you don't give Wire credit. Ever.
I just did.
Errors are made because of defensive pressure applied, and Chris says you're just worried about this Friday. You think they're going to win Leeds, don't you? Because Leeds are great now.
Yeah, well.
Leeds are back. You've put the
team to beat.
In round 1 by Wakefield. Yeah, I remember. Here's a long message that has been sent to me.
I just did give Wire credit about their defence and organisation.
Keep saying they're good. Say they're all great. Everything about Warrington is great. Simon and Moran, great. The Tesco's in the car park, great. Here's a comment from a Saints fan. On the topic of McManus's comments and the universal pelters he got from Saints fans. I mean, the interesting thing with this is he says immediately editorialising is in the olden days they could write in a programme. And he did write in a programme, but they don't sell programmes, so they had to send it out as a press release so we could all read it. Oh, for the days of Ken Bates. This also addresses recent pundit questions. Why do Saints fans moan? Is it entitlement? Which I think that's us. Saints fans have been unhappy for the 1+ year, for over a year, the complete disconnect by the club, brackets Rush/McManus, with its fan base. This includes basic admin errors, a lack of dialogue with fans, nepotism, sentimentality in recruitment, retentions, and generally taking the fans for granted. McManus's comments show both a complete contradiction in his position on the RFL and highlights his tone-deaf approach to Saints fans. He came across like a petulant child, much like his Challenge Cup final rant about Robert Hicks in 2019. What happened to me? A successful blue-chip professional ranting like a cross between a Victorian mill owner and a pound shop Derek Beaumont. Not my words. If he conducted himself like this in his business affairs, he would be broke. Matty Peach's comments were much more statesmanlike and indeed grown up, thanks to a person who sent that to us. So there you go. I said I'd read it out. So read it out.
I couldn't understand the statement. I think the waters that rugby league is in at the moment is muddy enough, and I think for both Eamon McManus, who I have a lot of time for in the work that he's done to get Saints to where they are, and Kevin Nicholas in the trade press today, don't help. I think they do come over as slightly patronising to an audience that passionately cares about the sport and it being the best it can be. I don't know why they think it takes the game forward at this point in time, and I thought that the tone was patronising and unnecessary.
There's so many things in there which were easily contradicted with comments he made when Nigel Wood was...
Which
was easy enough to
hold up on social
the internet doesn't forget. But also things like...
I just think the timing of it is crass.
The comments on the England women against the Gillaroos thing. But then, if that was offered to the RFL, do you want to play the Gillaroos? You can't say no.
It was the language of it that I thought was wrong. Not he's entitled to say whatever hell he likes. I also think that it's indicative, and he may well dispute this, of the fact that owners are being asked to put a hell of a lot of money in without any sign in the near future of a return, and that for that all fans should be grateful if they have an owner that can do that, and that owner is also entitled to say what they want. I just think the timing of it and the tone of it doesn't help.
I don't think they get... If they expect a return as in financial, I think they're foolish. The return they get back is purely philanthropic in terms of get a street named after you. But you get your picture with the cuff.
I think they're also putting in more than they perhaps had budgeted for, because they felt that by now the game would have moved to a point where they wouldn't have to top it up every year for the foreseeable future, and all they can see is, why would we think that the next TV deal is going to be any more, in which case all that means is I'm going to have to keep sticking in £1.5 million every year. 3
years into a 12-year process. The problem with the TV deal thing is a lot of money, if you look worldwide, is being spent by broadcasters on the main thing they want. So a lot of money spent on football here. In Australia, obviously, it's the NRL and the ARL. And in America, the NFL deal or the new basketball deal's worth a fortune. But that means that everything else gets progressively smaller. So I'm not sure there is going to be a bigger deal. And I'm not sure that's the fault of IMG or the RFL or Nigel Wood or anyone.
Well, I think that's just the only thing the game can do is make itself different. And going to Las Vegas made the game for one weekend different. Sky put in, we're led to believe, £100,000 to help promote that game. The content they got back, the advertisers that they got around the coverage going out, the fact that Brian Carney was able to interview big hitters like Peter Volandis, all of that, it has a value attached to it, and I think Sky saw the value in that, the bringing over of Michael Buffer and all that, and it got interest beyond the rugby league community. So there's a payback for that. You can't necessarily put a figure on it, but there is. And I think if you go to Sky and say, right, well, it's not going to be the same as it's been for the last few years, but this is the problem that we've got, that for us to look different now, partway through this season, there is no agreement of what that different looks like. And if you're going to do all of this, it needed to be done, in a coherent manner when you're not playing at the same time, and with a strategic plan that takes you up to the next and beyond television deal. And we're not doing that. We're virtually saying to Sky, we have no cards in our hand at the moment. But we'd like to play you at poker.
We don't know what we're doing. 5 rounds into the season. 5 rounds in, and we're already.
I think don't we say you shouldn't look at a league table until you're a quarter of the way through.
Yeah. What about? So, how far into the IMG partnership are we supposed to?
Well, the other thing I don't know a lot about anything, as is painfully obvious for anybody who listens to this podcast on a regular basis. But if I was negotiating a broadcast deal, both in the Southern Hemisphere and the Northern Hemisphere, I'd want IMG involved in those discussions. That is what they do. It's their meat and drink. They are the globally renowned partners. They deal in other markets that you're trying to get into. So if you're the NRL and you want some kind of American broadcast involvement in your sport, you don't go, have you heard of me? You go, IMG are our representatives. They will now present to you why you want to invest in this sport, because they're the rights deal brokers. And I think, Super League need them as well.
They're a part of a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate.
The biggest.
I don't think, off the top of my head, not knowing exactly who runs what businesses in rugby league, are any of our club owners multi-billionaire media conglomerate? He's not a media conglomerate.
No.
And he stayed quiet. He's not sending out statements.
I think the other thing that's really important in all of this is a coherent approach to rugby league. I think if we're going to get more money from Sky, or put a separate broadcasting proposal to a DAZN, or do what the NRL are doing, and they're courting Netflix and Amazon Prime, and they're likely to split up their offers like Premier League football is, so they'll get more money in, but as the customer you're probably going to have to pay a little bit more out if you want to see everything. That's the nature of the media beast these days. I think if you're going to do that and operate like that, then we have to be aligned, because I don't think we can offer, we've got that over here and we've got that over here. I think what we need to offer to get the money in that the owners feel like they quite rightly should be getting their return, you go to them with a global product. And we look at the moment as though we're anything but in agreement on what we want, and I think the Aussies who are prepared and may still invest in us need to know that they're investing in something that's credible, and they don't see that after what's happened in the last couple of weeks.
Don't need to read out Emma McManus's statement, because A, it's in the paper today, and B, you've probably already seen it. But it's interesting that in the League Express Highlights of the Week column, where they give out Player of the Week, Ryan Hall's got Player of the Week. He wasn't the best, but he didn't have a great game, did he? We'll come back to him in a minute. But
he had a really good game, but it was what was surrounding him rather than his individual performance.
X-Post of the Week, or as everyone else normal calls it, Twitter, because we're not in Elon Musk's back pocket. Totally agree with all Eamon says. A bankrupt but exquisitely governed sport is not what is required. I don't know what that means. Exquisitely governed, I don't know what that means. By Simon Paul Harrison at Simon H3DT, responding to the statement put out by the St Helens chairman. I'd love to know how they found that tweet, because he's got one follower and he follows 18 people.
Sounds like a burner account to me.
5 in a row. That's not how many grand finals Saints lost, says Paul. It'll be 6 next week, says Andy. Saints can't beat Warrington in big games. This is the problem, isn't it? They've lost all these games to Warrington.
They play each other 3 times in 6 weeks, don't they? Which again is a flaw of the fixture list.
They're bringing out the trophies pre-match and not having a minute silence for Doug Lawton, who played for St Helens, and was pointed out to me by someone this week, because Leeds did. Wakefield had a minute's applause for 2 volunteers, but Saints did nothing for that. But bringing out the trophies, that's always going to backfire. I know it nearly didn't, but it's easy for me to come on and say now, well, what happened? You brought those trophies out and you lost, so that didn't work out.
I think that again, that's hyping a rivalry that's going to be playing each other twice more in the very imminent future, and I am all for that. Wind up the opposition as much as you want, because it helps us promote the next time they play. I saw Louis bought one of the trophies out in his ill-fitting corporate suit.
You think you weren't there to give him a kiss though this week? So
not this week. No. That was last week.
Warrington should parade the Associated Rediffusion Television Trophy though when they play against them at the Halliwell Jones. It's back to being called the Halliwell Jones.
Did they win the Captain Morgan as well?
They did. So
the one and only time it was played.
I don't know if St Helens played in the Associated Redistribution TV trophy. So I'm now going to have to go and look that up. What else happened this weekend? Oh, Castleford 4, Catalans 26. I didn't watch this because I was on the radio. And you wouldn't have watched it because you were going to Leeds, so you watched some of it.
Yeah. Again, horrendous conditions. Driving rain throughout. Catalan played them much better than Cas did. Sam was back and Sam was dominant, and you can only but take your hat off to him. He was involved in all the good stuff. Aspero Biche, teenage scrum half, looked really good. Alrix da Costa looked good. Tavita Pangai Jr. took on the Castleford entire pack on his own and won. They just played the conditions better. I know Cass are struggling for bodies. I know that Danny Maguire's doing the best he can with the resources he's got available, but they're struggling.
This is a strange thing to say, but two of the bottom three have young English coaches in their first role. You get a feeling that it gives an excuse to club owners in the future to go, oh, let's get some assistant from the NRL, because these English lads can't cut it, unfortunately. And that's no disrespect to either Luke Robinson or Danny Maguire. It's just the cards they're dealt with.
It might be the squads that they've got.
It might be, but they won't see it that way, because, you know.
No. And Brad Singleton obviously made his debut for Cass. That he's going to help. He's going to give him a bit more size. He had only had, I think, one training session with the team, but I think we knew from the squad depth and the recruitment done that any pretensions that Cass had to make the top six were likely to not happen.
We're starting to hear more from the players who've left Salford about what has happened at Salford. I'm surprised we haven't heard more from, because all at the moment we're hearing from his club owner saying this and the other. I'm surprised to hear more from players about what's going on. It was interesting when Sky spoke to Matt Peake before the game and asked him about it. The players, the most important resource we have, are we listening to them, or are we taking their soundings on things?
Well,
the Players Union, whatever it is?
I think we'll find tomorrow, when the Ashes venues are formally announced and confirmed, that the Australian players have vetoed any other games. That it will be 3 test matches in this country and very little else in terms of rugby. They weren't prepared to bring 2 squads. They didn't want the top players to be overstretched, considering the collective bargaining agreement that they've got. So that, unfortunately, I think we will just get the 3 tests. It would have been lovely to have had one in France, but I think even that might have gone by the wayside. It may come out overnight. But that's because they've got such a strong players' union that looks after the welfare of the players, and we don't.
I can't get out of my mind that we've gone a few months here with a club playing players late or whatever, and issues with finance over the winter, and the players were willing to strike over referees sending players off last year by the rules, but not willing to say anything about this. It just doesn't add up in my brain why it doesn't work like that, unless of course people who run clubs still view players as pieces of meat, like in this Sporting Life.
I think
or Bradley Hardacre in Brass.
I really hope we've moved
but
on.
I'm sure they don't, and you know, facetious. When conditions are horrendous, says Paul, they are the same for both sides. There's not a reasonable excuse. It does rain a lot in Castleford, so
no, it's not an excuse. It's just that one team did adapt to them better than the other. Played the brand of rugby to the conditions, and again that comes down to Tompkins and his kicking game and playing in the right parts of the field, and Catalan did it better than Cass.
Sam Kinsey's back. Andrew says, should we be investing in some Wigan in Crisis t-shirts yet? Well, it's 2 in a row now, isn't it? So they are rubbish. Matt Peake, he's on the brink. But of course, saying that takes all the credit away, like last week from Hull, takes all the credit away from Leeds. And obviously, this is Leeds, they're back. As you say, that they are the team to beat now, which may well be done by Warrington on Friday. But tenacious.
I think the first thing to say is it was a fantastic game. We're talking about an international football weekend, 5:30 on a Saturday, when a lot of football fans would normally be tuning in to the end of final score and whatever the live match might be on a early Saturday evening. If you were not a rugby league fan and you tuned into that 80 minutes, you would have been admiring of the skill, of the ferocity of the defence, of the intensity, of the spirit, of the little bit of slight bit of needle as well that surfaced towards the end, all of which made it the most fantastic view. And again, what was the difference between the teams? A goal kick.
What was interesting is watching the game without the sound on. And if you take the commentary away, you take the sound of the crowd away as well, it does detach you from things a little. So it didn't feel as high quality as it might have actually been. Although I thought Wigan, they almost panicked a lot during the game. They almost tried things they didn't need to and go early with things. And you thought, you're only a couple of points behind. You don't really need to force things here. But it felt like they were forced at times. It was strange.
I thought it was just not only was it a great advert, but from a Leeds point of view, the last 15 minutes were the most important, because having found a way via Ryan Hall's melon to go ahead, particularly over the last couple of years, that is a Leeds team that would have got very close but not won. They would have conceded very late on and had an honourable narrow defeat. But the way they defended their line, even the forward pass that saw December into a hole, he was held up. That wouldn't have been a try. That was the kind of commitment in defence in the latter stage of a game against a very, very good team that show that Leeds are on the right track. It doesn't mean anything. It's one result. It was important because it was at home, because it got the vast majority of the 16,000 that were there really on their side. What was noticeable at the end, because the press box now is in the South Stand amongst the most fervent of fans,
too close to the band,
is that the Leeds-born players' reaction to the South Stand indicated that link was back, that who they were doing it for, the appreciation that they got back that they'd done it. Michalewski, Harry Newman, Ash Handley.
Lester was man of the match as well, wasn't he?
And deservedly so. Again, when you look at his stats, that they were outstanding. But Wigan were, and that's away from winning that game. They are anything but in crisis. They need to find a way of playing when Jai Field isn't there, because he's such an outlet for them.
Well, that's what Andy said. The difference was the lack of Field. What I don't understand is when Field doesn't play, why they move French back to fullback. Can't they find? I think anyone else who can play there instead? Because it feels like you're splitting up the Smith and I know there's the French and Field partnership. You've got the Smith and French.
The other mitigating factor for Wigan was Abbas Miski pulled out in the warm up. Young Jacob Douglas did a great job, but he wasn't expecting to start the game. So again, that's something else that they've got to accommodate. I thought their best player was Zach Eckersley. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. But they were a forward pass held up forward away from winning that game. I thought Leeds handled December brilliantly on that edge, and I think Lockie Miller, now he's back, does give them a different option. But both sides have players missing, and Andy Ackers and Matt Frawley weren't playing for Leeds. So I think Field's very important, but you can't build your team around if Field isn't there. Wigan aren't going to be the same. You've got to be able to cope with your star names not being there, and Wigan have last year. Field and French missed a fair bit of last year, and it didn't stop Wigan winning every trophy. I just thought it was a great occasion, a brilliant event, a credit to Rugby League. It was two names that people who are not aficionados would recognise as being two big Rugby League teams, and I think it was one of those 80 minutes where you walk away and go, irrespective of who won, that's why we've got such a fantastic sport.
Riley Lum's quite good as well. He's very good.
Yeah, only a young kid. Wouldn't be playing if Mike Acevo hadn't suffered his season-ending injury, and which again, because it happened before the season started, and that was a way Leeds wanted to play this year. They've had to find a way of overcoming that. So injuries you do have to cope with. Lum potentially is a star in the making.
Tom says only Eckersley could go full-back. So they might not want to put him there as a young player. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that he could play at full back. I think he was excellent in the centre. He's covered on the wing. I don't know. I think French is still a real threat from full back because he can pick the time and place that he wants to come into the line. And as he did with his try, that was a brilliantly executed move.
How did Jim Sullivan play 900 games? I still can't. Ryan Hall's played 500, and I know everything's different. I said that in the interview with him, but it's baffling. And Harry Newman upset everyone, so that was good.
Well, I think he only upset Harry Smith,
but
his England teammate.
Yeah, they missed it on two. They showed the bit after, but they didn't show the bits.
There was no obvious indication that was going to happen, so I don't think there was a huge focus on it. But I think when they went to shake hands or whatever, it seemed as though Newman rubbed Smith on the head.
Oh. It's not like Wigan players ever do that, is it? No, they don't do that. So.
But again, it adds to the rivalry and the storylines, and it's great. And there's been no repercussion from the disciplinary for it.
Is everyone upset about the disciplinary this week about it? I don't know. Only because the Huddersfield player's been banned, so no one's interested. So it's all right. Hull Kingston Rovers 30, Lee Leopards 0.
Another game that was over at half.
Yeah, 22-0 at half time. That was it. The second half was dreadful, wasn't it? Just nothing happened. It was really strange.
Again,
the only exciting thing was Michael Lewis might have hurt his shoulder, but he hadn't. So
a game that was in the balance until probably 3 minutes before half time, and then Hull KR fashioned 2 lovely tries. And it's the nil bit that at this stage in the season, when there was a strong wind blowing off the North Sea, which you still can get in the summer, but to nil teams, is that 3 games running that Hull KR have nilled?
Are they the new Wigan now as well? Yeah,
that tells you how well they're playing. And again, they've lost 1 or 2 players in the lead up, but the unity and strength and belief in what they're doing is fantastic. You don't want to peak too early in a season, but it's very hard to say that Hull KR don't deserve to be 3 points clear at the top of the table.
It's the confidence of a team where Joe Burgess puts that kick through for Mikey Lewis's try. Brilliant. Absolutely superb.
And Lewis's offload as well for Tangana were fantastic, and James Batchelor's offload for the who scored the try in the corner. Tom Davis.
Who's also scored. Has he scored 5 so far this year or something?
Fantastic.
I might as well look at
great
the
skill.
paper 4.
Great skill. A brilliant performance from Hull KR against the second place team. I don't think you could ask much more of them at the moment.
Paul says Batchelor is outstanding. Such a presence now. He's been given guidance from a great coach.
Yep.
And he's one of those players who again does all the work and doesn't necessarily get all the credit.
From his time at Wakefield.
KR haven't played the top 2 teams, says Andy, which I assume are Wigan and Warrington from last year. So we'll.
They just played the team that was in second.
Yeah. And they're away at Hull KR on Sunday in a game that will people watch out? Will they watch Wigan versus Salford? I don't know. Castleford versus Hull on Thursday. That's one of the main Sky games. So
you have to say again that now going into that game, Hull would be favourites.
The Liam Watts derby is going to score a hat trick.
It will be interesting to see if Cass can respond. They need some kind of a response. What was the crowd on Saturday at Cass? Have they
6,005?
Yeah, it's dropped a little already.
Lee, Wakefield and Warrington Leeds on Friday. Warrington Leeds is the main game on Sky.
5,000th game.
Catalans Saints on Saturday, which I'll do the watch along again if you missed that, so we'll do that again on Saturday. Huddersfield, Hull KR and Wigan, Salford on Sunday. Do you know what? The problem with the internet is you can keep telling people things and they're too thick to listen. Sky can only show 2 games on their main channels. They can show all the games on the red button. That's why. I mean, it's stupid scheduling when they put a repeat of a game on at the same time as a game on the red button. But that's why they can only show 2 games. I don't know why people can't get that in their heads, but they can't. We'll move on to the other games in a minute. I think we've almost done the politics thing, don't we? Because I don't think there's anything more we need to say about that. But, well, maybe not. The Women's Championship is back. Swinton, who were clever enough to play double headers at their home venue, as opposed to, say, Warrington, beat Bradford 34-6. What's happened to Bradford? London 22, Cardiff 22. They're our new favourite team now, of course.
Who, Cardiff?
Up the Demons.
Who was the player of the match in that game?
The one we sponsor. Featherstone, well, joint player of the match, but close enough. Featherstone 44, Hull 0. Alton 16, Castleford 8, Salford 12, Sheffield 4 in League 1, Halifax 8, Wakefield 80. What's going on there? Used to be rubbish, we're good now. Illingworth 4, Stanley 30, Workington 26, Lee Miners Rangers 4, which is, I guess, Lee Leopards reserves. Fryston 34, Widnes 32, and in League 2, Ashton 16, Batley 12. Rochdale versus Wigan St Hughes was postponed, and Barron District Raiders versus Heysham, there's no result. Professionalism in rugby league. Before we get on to the Championship in League 1, the Challenge Cup draw. That must be in the paper somewhere. That was exciting. What a dreadful thing that was. I'm going to have to write about that for the magazine. Because it was absolutely dreadful.
Keep some of your powder dry.
I know. It was dreadful. I've already worked out a line on something I can get in there. But
it wasn't what we were promised,
no,
was it?
we were promised an hour of rugby. I'm sure it said that on the RFL website. I'm sure we didn't just make it up.
Well, we finished our podcast. I rushed home.
And then they were talking about bloody golf.
Formula 1.
Golf and Formula 1. Sports for boring people. Apologies to you if you like golf or Formula 1. You probably watched the boat race. But Hull Derby.
Only the 3rd Hull Derby.
Which is surprising, isn't it?
Which I'm staggered about.
Well, the amount of time Saints play Warrington every year, or Wigan Warrington, you think, well, how's that happened? Wakefield Lee, because they play each other in successive weeks. Saints Warrington, so is it at Warrington? And
Catalan Salford.
Catalan Salford. No one cares about that one, do they?
Can you imagine if Salford got to Wembley?
Do Catalans pay for their trip? No, it's a serious question. I know it sounds I'm doing a bit, but do they pay in the Challenge Cup? Someone asked, did they pay their £500,000 bond as well? Right.
Oh, there'll be some people sweating if they get to Wembley.
Nigel, sort that out. Sorry out, Nigel. It was a rubbish draw, but a great draw. Yes, Andy, that sums it up.
Yeah.
I've got a lot to say, but I'll leave it for the magazine. In the Championship, York are back. They won away at Batley 23-10. Batley, not enough Thoroughbred Rugby League people in their team. And they didn't give their attendance out. Well, they didn't even give their attendance out. That's not very professional, is it? So well done, York, on picking up your first win of the season. Bradford 8, Barrow 18. What a result on Friday night that was.
Incredible.
For the Raiders.
What a wonderful performance.
TV people.
And again, I think, we all assumed that if there was going to be a dominant team, that it might be Bradford with their recruitment. And that's what, including the cup tie with Salford, 3 defeats in a row. So, see what our man Mr Noble can do.
I've got to be nice about Bradford now, I don't like it. Doncaster 22, Widnes 26, another big win for Widnes.
Kai Taylor-Ray.
Yeah.
On loan from Warrington was the start.
So they pretend to hate each other, but really they're doing each other favours. Halifax 38, Featherstone 12. This is where we had a message from Ian earlier. Can you talk about Kyle Eastman and what a start to his coaching career? 4 wins from 4 in the league. They are top of the table, clear of the rest by 2 points. When he was appointed, it was a bit, what a left field appointment. Where's this come from? But Halifax, who've had their financial issues, he's obviously getting a tune from their team.
That's the thing, that the start of this season, the story was, are we going to have a Halifax? Have they avoided their winding up order? They can't really recruit players. They're going for a younger squad with an unproven coach. We all went, well, it's going to be a treading water year for Halifax. Let's hope they can come out of it. That may not be the finishing position at the end of the season. There is a hell of a long way to go.
They may lose every game now.
But what a fantastic start. And I think Eastman is, we talk about St Helens, but clearly he's being mentored by people at St Helens, by Wellens and Breers. And I think they've got a very good relationship with Super League clubs to get loan players in, but I don't think even the most avid Halifax fan would have seen a start to the season like this, and it is a phenomenal story.
It's Liv Williams we sponsored at Cardiff. Liv Williams. There's lots of lives.
Live and let live.
Live and let live. But so that was one investment this week from the podcast funds.
Featherstone have got issues.
Well,
our good friend Paul Cook, who's saying that again that if you haven't got half backs, it's very hard to win a game, and he's not got a settled squad. They're at Bradford this week. That'll be a really interesting game.
They're playing for the Peter Fox Trophy, I'm assuming, because they usually do, don't they? I don't know
yeah,
if
I think it's at Featherstone as well, but it's a big game for both clubs.
So not only have we spent all the money on our advertising funds on sponsoring a Cardiff Demons player, because I saw it on Instagram, I thought that's a good way of spending money, but also Wakefield Trinity, who obviously not short of a bob or two these days.
Not these days.
Have been flogging stuff on eBay, including the boards from the change rooms at Wembley, because teams spend money.
When they won the 18
Yeah, so they've had all these, like Max Jowitt's went for £200 and stuff, and Matty Ashton's for £150. Matty Ashton, it's not Matty Ashton, he wasn't playing there. And as the people saw on Saturday, I'm picking it up tomorrow, I bought Daryl Alfords. Didn't even play in the game. £50. Why have I done that?
Where are you going to put it?
I don't know.
Presumably here next week.
Well, no, because it's huge. It's bigger than you, Phil.
Well, most things are. The cherry on that cake is bigger than me.
It's going to be. I'm going to have to put it in my bedroom somewhere. It's like, oh God. Well, start with Daryl Alfords.
Can you start it back to Dell?
I could do. He's at Featherstone, so he can afford it. It'll be all right. So yeah, that's. Someone did say, well, it's a one of a kind thing. Yeah, it is one of a kind.
It can only appreciate in value.
Well, selling from cardboard, recycling. I think I just might give it to my nephew and say, well, I've bought this. Right, here's the thing where I've bought this, you can just have it. I can't be bothered.
Hasn't he signed for Bradford?
Possibly. Oldham 50, London Broncos 6.
That's a great result.
These are big results. Yeah, because Oldham they've had an interesting start to the season, haven't they? But I think I saw an
interview with Mike Eccles afterwards saying that was a bad day at the office for us. Well, yes, but that's a great result for Oldham.
What was the crowd there? 1,567. And they're starting to, but they've got this new thing coming. They're doing a world record attempt for something.
Well, and they've got investment in. They're becoming an educational campus for the university and various other things for the people of the town. And again, putting the club at the absolute hub of it, which is fantastic. And again, it shouldn't be underestimated. It's because of ING.
Don't say that.
Sorry.
Don't say that. Toulouse 50, Hunslet 6, which isn't a surprise because Hunslet have just been promoted and Toulouse are one of the top clubs and
full time.
Yeah, so 5,000 there. They did a double header with one of the French games.
Yeah,
in the French domestic games.
And was it Carcassonne, which?
Funny it says it here 34-30. Yes.
Which went to golden point extra time and an interception by Tony Gigot.
Former Wakefield great. Carcassonne of Regal Trophy fame and so on and so forth.
They used to be in the cup and nobody complained.
Yeah. And when the Russians were there, you're not allowed the Russians in now. Because they don't exist. But we're from Red Star Belgrade, Ottawa, New York. Oh, New York don't exist anymore, do they? Because I was in the chicken wing a few weeks ago. They've been dissolved away.
I'm not sure Ottawa ever did.
No. Well, they're Cornwall, aren't they? I found out, by the way, the beach rugby I'm offering in Mallorca, it's based on rugby league. So,
good.
So a report from Mallorca coming next month.
Lovely.
I won't be bringing back any merchandise because I've only got a little bag with Ryanair because you know what they're like. In League One, Cornwall won a game for the first time this season. They beat Newcastle 32-22.
But that sounded a credible game for both teams.
Sounds exciting, doesn't it? Goal 6, North Wales 28. Was this the one played in the Rugby Union ground? Because they posted a picture of their stadium. It's dug up a bit at the minute, so they can't play any games.
Yes, it wasn't the Victoria Pleasure Ground.
No.
The David Beckham Pleasure Ground.
Keighley 24, Midlands 26. Well done, the Hurricanes, who are top of the table.
Yeah, it's a great story. It's a great... But Keighley are bottom.
Yeah. Which is a surprise, isn't it? And they haven't got a coach yet, have they? So
they've got a
caretaker.
coach,
but yeah, but not
heard a rumour who they might get.
No. That's one of those that you can't... It's like Brian Carney, you can't tell us on the air. So
I think it may be a coach who was in the Championship last year, then went to Australia and might be coming back. If the investigation's finished.
Oh, right, that one. We haven't spoken about the tweets thing, have we? We'll speak about that in a minute. Because there's not much to say about it. Swinton 10, Dewsbury 26. That's why the Swinton fans are upset, because all the money's going to the women now, which it isn't. Swinton have won 2 games out of 3. Dreadful. Sat the board. Whitehaven 24, Rochdale 20.
Which again, Rochdale's first defeat of the season. Sorry, Harry. Great result for Whitehaven. Is it this week that Whitehaven play Cornwall?
It is.
In Cornwall?
At 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon.
Debate in the press box on Headingley on Saturday, is this the longest trip ever in the history of rugby league?
In this country, because
in
it's
this country.
Perth too.
Yeah. By coach, not in an aeroplane. Right? We don't think they're going from Whitehaven International Airport.
No. Let us know if, because someone will know. Get Google Maps up. 447 a goal for a team that's new. That's all right. That's a good starting point.
Yeah.
Especially when it's only half of what Swinton and Whitehaven have got, and they've got a bit of a head start on. If you're a professional rugby league person, if you're a person, right, and you're on social media, which you shouldn't because it's rubbish, but you are in a role where people could be mischievous and look back at whatever you've said in the past, whether that's 10, 12 or last year, just delete everything. Mm-hmm. Or don't say things in the first place that could be taken out of context, which is we don't know what's been said, we don't know what's been tweeted, but if you follow that advice, you are going to... They're told, don't bet on rugby league. So when players bet on rugby league, they get in trouble, and we all go, oh, why didn't it happen? Don't take drugs. And then they take drugs and they get banned, and we go, oh, how did it happen? Don't tweet dodgy things. And they tweet dodgy things and they get in trouble. Although you could say, why have some people been in trouble and some people not been in trouble? Well, I don't know. We don't know, but it doesn't matter when it was done, just delete it.
Don't do it in the first place.
Or don't do it in the first place. I'm a bit concerned about the language being used by people in rugby league, especially these club owners talking about proper rugby league people and thoroughbred rugby league people, and comparing these people. Are we proper rugby league people? I don't know. Do you have to have played the game or just invested in the game? And the people who were previously on the board of the RFL, who, as we all know now, are just money grabbing people who were there just for the cash. It's worrying language, because it's that language of division between us and them.
But it's reflective of society.
It is reflective of society. I don't want to be like Gary Lineker and get banned.
Is he banned?
He got banned, didn't he, from the BBC when he compared language from politicians to the 1930s in Germany. And I'm not quite doing that. But I don't think anyone would go on strike for me. But just
some of the things
careful.
that are being said at the moment, I'm not sure what the reasoning behind it is.
We want change, but we don't know what that change is.
I would have thought deciding what that change should be and then going for it would have been a better way than going for it and then wondering what it might be.
I watched the thing last night about the miners' strike, which is this weird thing that happened while I was alive, but I don't really know what happened, because I realised we still need Maurice Lindsay, don't we? We still need a Thatcher or a Scargill or a charismatic leader who can come out and say things, even if, obviously, in those cases, there might have been all extremely flawed individuals. But who is standing up for the sport at the minute? Who is there?
But what would you say? If you were employed tomorrow as the spokesperson for the sport, what would you be able to say other than, we are a bit of a shambles at the moment? I know we look it, but we actually are. Products, great. Could you please just watch the game? Don't ask me any questions about what's happening outside of that.
So basically with that bloke that Saddam Hussein had, aren't we saying, no, nothing's going on here. I didn't give out the fixtures in the Championship. Doncaster to Leeds on Saturday, London Hunslet as well, and on Sunday Barrow York, Featherstone Bradford, Halifax Batley and Sheffield Oldham. So some interesting games in the Championship. It's just a shame you can't see them unless clubs decide to stream them, which some are and some aren't. In the Championships mentioned, in the League One as mentioned, Cornwall Whitehaven, Dewsbury Keighley. That's a big game at the bottom of the table, although Dewsbury have won a couple of games, but they lost this week. Newcastle Midlands, Swinton Ghoul and Workington versus North Wales Crusaders. So Rochdale get the week off this week. If you're a fan of Abigail, our resident Rochdale fan, she won the competition to win Caitlin Beaver's kit, and she's now, because she's trying to raise money for various charities, she's got a competition. So I've tweeted it the other day, so find it on our social media feeds and enter the competition, pay her some money, and A, give you money to charity, and B, you might win some of Caitlin Beaver's kit, which I know at least one of our listeners would like to win, but I'm not entering it for them. Is that everything?
Well, unless there's any other questions that we can't answer, but
No,
we'll
I think so.
happily try.
I think we've spoke about Halifax, we spoke about St Helens, we spoke about all the games. Just hope it's another good week on the stuff on the field. I mean, this was a point made earlier. You know, some of the games are good, some aren't, but not every game can be perfect. But
the ones that,
but we're getting enough good games.
Yeah. The first 5 rounds have produced some fabulous rugby.
If you're not going to go into Salford and Huddersfield expecting it to be a great game, and it wasn't. So it's all right. Andy finishes with Chris Radlinski as being the best promoted promoter of rugby league, if you ask me. The RFL could do a lot worse than him as the chairman. Well, he's a proper rugby league person, we know that. I mean, we know he does work for free.
Fulfills every criteria.
Works for free, as he did that season at Wigan when they didn't pay him because he came out of retirement. Was that the season they brought the salary cap, or was that the season after? Don't ask the columnist in the magazine next time. Don't ask him. But yeah, he's a success. He's a success.
I think he's frying his own fish at the moment. Not sure he wants to own the shop.
On that bombshell. Steve's not told us what's coming up next on rugbyleague.com, has he? But I think it was the Beatles. I mean,
was it? Oh,
yeah.
You can't get any better than that.
Who could it be? AC/DC, probably. They're Australian.
He'll
Foo
be,
Fighters.
if it's AC/DC, he'll be hopping around the room on one leg.
Some other podcasts. Not Chapel Roan. It's a shame, but that new song's great.
No, he hasn't sent a message, so I'm assuming it'll be 99 red balloons.
Yeah. 99 Luftballon.
It's her birthday today.
Yeah. Oh. Well, we're back on Monday. We're back on Monday, aren't we? We might have a. We might be. We might have a guest. We might not. No, we're auditioning.
Yes, if you want to be a guest, let us know.
If you want to be a future president of the Rugby Football League, they've got to get Adam Hills a new coat. He keeps coming on the telly in his World Cup coat. They've got to get him a new coat. I know we've got no money because obviously that's what they're all moaning about in the paper.
There's got to be some swag we can get.
It's got to be. If you want to be on the board of the RFL, come on the podcast. So we may have a guest in it, but we will have another podcast. I think on Wednesday next week, and possibly something from the Women's Super League launch, if I can be bothered to go to Lee, which of course I'm going to do, aren't I? But Lee, we certainly don't need another Thatcher, says Paul. And on that bombshell,
nobody does.
No. Maggie, out, Maggie, out, Maggie, out. Where's Ronnie? Ronnie, on. Ta-ra.